All right, what is going on, everybody? We are back for Week 10 NFL main slate review. I am joined back here with Max. We had his twin brother, Danny, step in last week, and hope you guys enjoyed hearing Danny and Danny's thoughts. I know some people commented like, "Oh man, I've seen those usernames, around, and it's nice to put a face to the name." So hope you guys enjoyed that. Maybe Max is busy. We'll have him jump back in later this season. But Max, man, happy to have you back. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I was so if Dak Prescott basically didn't exist, I think I would have won a lot of money last week because I was really heavy on Justin Herbert. But pretty happy with the week and excited to do this once again.
Right on, right on. We're gonna be doing something a little bit different. We try to shake up the show every once in a while. Just Max and I talk, and new ideas come in one of our heads, and we run it by each other. So we had a fun one this week that we wanted to do. So we're gonna start here with the 555 milli maker for this week. A little bit of a smaller field overall, only 5,000 entries, and we wanted to talk about quarterbacks and basically the different ways quarterbacks are stacked, how those work, and kind of go from there. So, Max, I know that this was your idea out of the gate here, so I want to fulfill your vision here. So, what are you thinking?
Yeah, so why don't we just look at the top lineups like we always do and see what quarterbacks are standing out? And then what I'd like to do is from that, look at this and look at some of those quarterback stacks more in depth and see,
Mhm.
what characteristics of the stack give the highest ROI lineup. So can we just do the expanded lineup view and
Sure,
just see
sure,
some of these
of
lineups?
course.
Yeah.
All right.
So Joe Burrow is definitely one we're going to look at. I would say Brock Purdy as well. Why don't you scroll down? Let's choose maybe one more quarterback. And maybe Dak
Maybe
Prescott.
Prescott.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's look at Burrow first because I think that's an interesting one because if you look at the players, Joe Mixon is really highly owned. And I'm wondering if we see better lineups overall with Joe Mixon or without him. So why don't we look at
Yeah,
that
so
first?
Joe Burrow
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Joe Mixon overall 38% ownership here, and then the next highest Bengal 22%. Trenton Irwin, a very cheap play with T Higgins out. So let's go
Yeah.
jump over to our quarterbacks and let's zone in on Joe Burrow. So just so you guys know, watching this, we always say these kind of like tutorial videos. When you use these plus and minus icons, the exposures are going to update. So you're going to see on the right his actual ownership, and then the exposure for him goes up to 100%. So we're basically zoning in on the 680 lineups that have Joe Burrow. And then when you switch back here to all, these exposures are going to update. So it's going to say, hey, from the 680 lineups that have Burrow, 65% of them have Jamar Chase. So that's kind of what we're doing here. And you guys can do this at home as well.
Yeah, so let's look at Joe Mixon first. So let's sort of like see how many lineups get 100% sim plus sim ROI with Joe Mixon. So do you want to
Okay.
add Joe Mixon?
Yep. So
Okay.
227 lineups total with the
Yeah.
two.
Okay. So let's see. Keep
One,
scrolling
two,
down. So
three,
top three are like that. Keep going down.
6, 9, 11. We stop right
There's
here. We
11.
jump to
Okay. So
94.
okay, let's look at him without.
Okay.
So this isn't to say like we're not trying to evaluate like is Joe Mixon definitely a bad play or is he definitely a good play, right? Like as we've seen with this, why don't you do the negative magnifying glass with Joe Mixon so we can see
Ah,
once without him, right? This isn't going to be perfect either because he's well, actually, it'll probably be fine. Okay. So as we're looking at this, I just want to say this isn't like, is Joe Mixon bad in your lineup? Is Joe Mixon good in your lineup? Right? It's as we've seen with this, it's not like things aren't just like a hard and fast rule, right? You can have chalk players and you can have a lineup that does well. You can have some lineup combination that's not that great, but because the rest of your lineup is good, it's going to be a high ROI lineup. And so, but it's interesting here because, before the slate, if you thought, hey, I think Joe Burrow is not going to come in at high ownership because no quarterback comes in at high ownership. I think people are going to spread it around. And you would have been right? He only came out at 13% ownership in this contest. So then our question is, okay, if I'm thinking that before the slate, how am I supposed to stack him? So I'm seeing with Mixon, how many lineups did you count over 100%?
Right now, 9. So 9 without
9.
Mixon, 11 with.
Okay, so I'd say that's sort of a wash. I would say that's sort of a wash. If you don't have Mixon, it's basically as good if you have Mixon. This isn't the most scientific analysis. But I'm curious, how about with Chase? Let's see lineups with Chase.
All right. So there's overall a lot more lineups,
Yes.
about 2 times as much. So this should be interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, 3.
So one of the things here that we're going to have to account for as well is the fact that, hey, there's a lot of lineups with Chase, so there's going to be more lineups that are higher away because it's bigger samples. So we'd have to see a pretty significant amount of lineups over 100% ROI to make a definite thing about him. Wow,
okay, so
though.
it
80,
stops
almost,
here.
yeah. Oh, I see. Did you count them up?
It was about like 20-ish. It started
Okay.
to jump a little bit, but it's about 20.
Okay. That doesn't actually say anything to me either, I would say, just because there's so many Chase lineups. Do we want to look at Irwin and Tyler Boyd and see if we can...
Oh, I was going to go no Chase.
Oh, okay. Let's look at that. Because that would be really interesting. I think most people sort of have the thought, if you're going to use Burrow, you should use Chase, right?
Okay, so this is super interesting, right? There's only one lineup without Chase and Burrow that is over 100% sim ROI.
So that's really interesting. That's really interesting. I mean, there's not enough that are, and you can see as well, notice here, it's not Burrow and Irwin who's the cheapest wide receiver, right? It's Burrow and Boyd with Mixon, or a lot of them with Mixon. And I think that what that says to me is, if you're going to construct lineups and you're going to stack a quarterback, that stack, you do want to have those high upside pieces. That's really going to be when the quarterback goes off. And so it does make sense, if you're trying to, hand choose your top 3 lineups from a group of lineups, or just trying to focus, have sort of a process that, makes a bunch of different lineups and favorites them or whatever. That does say to me that, hey, if you're going to stack a QB and that QB is high priced, or maybe not, we might learn that for anyone, but you're going to want to use that really high upside receiver with him. And you can kind of see in this contest, right? This is the 5-5-5. So this is a higher stakes contest. And you can see, like, people use Burrow, they use Chase a lot, right? And so that also says to me that smart players are saying, hey, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it with Jamar Chase, even with the injury stuff, even with, the uncertainty. They're just like, hey, this is good. And it makes me confident that, that sort of heuristic is actually smart.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And then one thing that I also noticed in, like, all of these Burrow stacks is that, a lot of these are all game stacks, right? They are betting on Burrow and his receivers or position players going off and then bringing somebody back. We see Noah Brown, we see Tank Dell, we see Dalton Schultz, right? So we see Devin Singletary. Like, all of these are game stacks of some sort.
Yeah. Yeah, and that might, I don't know if I'm going to have a hard and fast rule about that one, because I remember when I was making lineups to SaberSim, I had to literally limit secondary game stacks, because it was actually making a lot of lineups, which was correct, that were like Cincinnati 3 stacks, Houston 3 coming back, or vice versa. And I was like, oh, wow, this seems a little crazy, but it ended up being pretty good. Do we want to look at Purdy or Prescott? And
I say look. I would like to look at Prescott if that's okay.
Okay, sure.
Cool. So a little less ownership here. 8.6%, so like 5% less overall here. But I'm interested to see, who the most common players were with him were. A lot of CD Lamb, and
Again, we're
then
seeing this,
and
right, as,
mhm.
this is a higher stakes contest, and so I think we can actually get something from the fact that what people are doing is kind of something that we can learn from. But also, if we're getting SaberSim saying, "Hey, we actually think this is good too," that's like the double whammy that makes you think, "Okay, this is a really good idea." So,
And Dak Prescott here like directly contradicts like the way that Burrow was stacked in those game stacks, right? I mean, it was a low total. Dallas was a huge favorite, and then now like with the Prescott lineups, you're seeing what is that 90% of them have no bring back. Like the top,
yeah,
three are QB plus one, QB plus two, QB plus three. So like that goes to your point. Like there are no hard and fast rules here. And I think it's so interesting how you see different quarterbacks being treated differently here. So like I think people will make rules like, oh, I always want a QB plus two with the run back. But that should be handled kind of on like a quarterback by quarterback basis or game by game basis, right? There's different things that make sense in different situations. So I find that super interesting here.
yeah. And you know what? I mean, I bet in the lower stakes contest, Dak Prescott was less owned because people wanted that bring back, and it was literally impossible because the Giants are so unbelievably inept on offense. And, that ended up being a huge mistake, not being willing to just do that sort of stack with no bring back. I think actually it would be interesting given that CeeDee Lamb's so high owned that maybe it would be interesting to look at Josh Dobbs, right? Because he's sort of a lower
Okay.
salary quarterback. And, what do we do with that, right? What's the best way to do had to handle that? Should we be double stacking him? Should we be is using the tight end better? We can see a lot of people use Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson. Why don't we look at Hawkinson?
Okay.
Because that would I want to see basically with him or without how that works.
So 106 lineups with the two of them.
Yep.
And we're looking at about 3, 6, 9, 9 lineups,
Okay.
positive sim ROI.
Okay. Let's look without Hawkinson.
All right. And here, only one. Only one.
Only one. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that's not surprising. I'm curious. How about let's look at the doubles because
Okay.
was it better to single stack here or was it better to double stack? Is sort of the interesting thing.
Do you want to look at like stack exposures or?
Sure. Why don't we do QB plus two versus QB plus one with a bring back and see
Okay.
what our counts are here.
So let's start QB plus twos here. So we got Dobbs and then Addison and Hawkinson. And I'm seeing
Probably a lot of that. Yeah.
6,
Okay.
100% pluses.
Okay. Let's look at that QB plus one with the bring back, which was more popular and is sort of like the more let's do the perfect type of, and it's just
Only
one.
one.
Yeah. So that's interesting. I think that might be a little contrary to people's belief, when you have someone like Dobbs who isn't expected to pass for many fantasy points. Saber's saying, hey, double stacking him with two pretty viable players, even if they're not the best value in the world, is going to be a lot better. So that's interesting to me. I had a Dobbs stack in this contest, and I did do the double stack, which is what Saber seemed to really like. So that makes sense. But it's interesting because it seems like people, kind of didn't want to do that. They didn't know if there's enough passing to go around. But again,
I think that tracks. No, it's
Yeah,
just I think that tracks with like past things that we've seen, right? You're going to take that lower salary quarterback at lower ownership. You're going to need more of his pieces to kind of get there for them all to get there together. So I definitely see where and why you took that 2 stack.
yeah. And I think again, it's sort of like, hey, we're taking a contrarian stack with a low salary QB. Again, we're seeing the higher priced pieces working out, and maybe that has to do with the value, right? Is there's not many other people to go to, but SaberSim really seemed to like Addison and Hawkinson, and not really lineups with any other stack players, some of those lower players.
Yeah, I think the QB plus 2 versus the QB plus 1, having so less sim ROI lineups is actually just like a fun exercise to kind of go through to just like see what SaberSim thinks of like those correlations on like a quarterback by quarterback basis. Because quarterbacks are different at the end of the day, right? So I think that's very fun exercise right here.
It'd be interesting. Who is a quarterback that had like a decent value play that
Probably
I'm
CJ
one.
Stroud, right? With like Noah Brown when Nico Collins out.
Yeah, although I feel like they project it so well. I'm thinking like someone who had a val. How about Geno Smith? Let's look at Geno Smith,
All right.
because that was a place where I was genuinely confused on what to do, because we had DK Metcalf, we had Tyler Lockett, and we had Jackson Smith and Jigba, and all of them were kind of the same value. Not they're not really much better than each other. So I'm curious if QB plus one SaberSim is liking there, QB plus two with a bring back, or QB plus three. Like how do we like these lineups?
Sure. So none above 100% sim ROI for these QB plus ones.
Okay. Well, maybe we have to do a different, because he's not as good of a quarterback. So maybe let's try to count like above 60% or something, and see, maybe. If you don't
Okay.
mind.
Yeah. All right. QB plus 1. Two. Two above
Okay.
60.
Okay. Let's do QB plus two.
You find me this is bring back one?
Yeah.
All right. Above 63.
Oh. They're
Just
like sort
3.
of skirting the line, but it does seem to like it a little better. I mean, there's a naked QB plus two as well, right? Or naked is not the right terminology, but could you look at QB plus two without a bring back?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, there's enough of these.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. QB plus 2s. 99, 95, 91. Looks like it likes this one more. 4 line, a huge drop right here. You go from
Yeah.
80% to like 44.
Yeah. And why don't we look at QB plus one with the bring back? I mean,
74,
2, 3.
65, 64.
Huh. Okay.
4.
So it's a 4.
They're all like really similar.
Yeah. It's really, so that's sort of interesting. It's sort of, I mean, I guess that matches intuition, right? Is you kind of don't know what to do, and the reason is because you kind of can flip a coin, and all those decisions actually end up being about the same. I would say, given how many lineups were QB plus two versus QB plus one, that does seem like it was a little better to do QB plus two. I'm curious, QB. Why don't we just look at QB plus three and see if there's any lineups that are over 60%? Because that would say to me, no.
No.
Yeah, it seems to really not like that. So that's interesting. I mean, that says to me, if you have a quarterback where there's not enough value there to justify playing three players, then maybe it's not smart to just jam those three players in, even if they're all kind of decent. You'd rather go with that QB plus two or QB one plus one. That's interesting to me. That's interesting. I think that in the
Yeah.
future, yeah. sorry, I keep talking, but in the future, if you're in that type of situation where, you're trying to figure out which lineups I should favor in my pool, it does seem like QB+3 is reserved for when it really makes sense. There's a lot of value. The quarterback is truly elite versus a situation like this where there's not a lot of value and you have some good players. You're going to want to look at QB+2 or QB+1. Do you have any thoughts, Andrew?
No, I mean, it's definitely a very interesting like thought experiment. One thing that like kind of stuck out to me is that, we saw like with Joe Burrow that we could get like a lot of his running back with him, right? But I haven't really seen that. Like, I didn't really see, Tony Pollard. I didn't really see any of like the Vikings running backs. I don't see Kenneth Walker or even like Zach Charbonnet kind of coming up here. So I don't know if that's just like because Mixon is just like more of a workhorse, but I don't feel like he's like some elite like pass catching back like the Christian McCaffrey type or even like Rashad White like catches like a bunch of passes out of the backfield. So I'm I mean we see three of his wide receivers paired with him all over like 33%, but like I haven't seen any running backs other than that one Bengals situation here. So that's just something I've been tracking.
Yeah, that could have to do with value, though. I mean, we could look at Baker Mayfield with Rashad White because that's an example of, hey, this guy's really an elite pass catcher and was pretty good value. So I'm curious if in that instance, someone like Rashad White is going to show up. And he's only in 23% of Baker lineups.
Do you want to look at these?
Yeah.
Sweet.
And so my guess is we're going to have to use our heads here a little bit because there's going to be more lineups without Rashad White than with him. So, I'm seeing about 3 lineups over 60% ROI.
And it looks like most of these, like, are bigger stacks overall, right? Like either like a game
they're making
stack or
them
like
part of a bigger
multiple,
stack.
right? Multiple wide receivers here. Like this is like, hey, I'm betting on like the Bucks as a whole, right? And I think Rashad White is going to be part of that mix. But even then, I mean, are Mike Evans and Chris Godwin like great value? Like typically not, right?
Yeah, although the best lineup is 3 stack here, so that is sort of interesting. And it's possible it's just like, that awesome. I mean, this is Awesomo's lineup and just his pieces around it. Staversim just really likes those pieces, so that could be a part of it as well. Let's look at his lineups without Rashad White.
All right.
Because if we don't see many high ROI without him, then that says to me no. But it's actually it seems like the lineups
like
that Saber. Yeah, it seems like the lineups that Saber likes best with this, even considering the fact that there's a lot less Rashad White lineups, is this Baker Mayfield with Mike Evans or Baker Mayfield with Mike Evans or Chris Godwin with Cade Otton is interesting, or there's some Godwin too, but it seems like Cade Otton is definitely a piece of it in a lot of them, which is interesting to me.
I think I counted 16 lineups here.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's very interesting.
So clearly, and you're seeing high stakes players do this, right? Is they don't love stacking the quarterback with the running back as much. And I think, maybe in these cases where you have a running back, none of these guys really count with this. But maybe someone like who's a running back who probably has like less than 10% target share, like a David Montgomery, right? Okay. David Montgomery and Jared Goff. Maybe you make a rule that says no David Montgomery with Jared Goff. Maybe you make a rule that says no Lamar Jackson with Gus Edwards. Maybe you make a rules like that. And that actually could help make your lineup pool a little better, right? Because 5,000 lineups, if you're subscribing to Pro or Ultimate, it's a lot of lineups, and in the scheme of things, it's not a lot of lineups. And so it makes
Right.
sense to make some rules to make sure that lineup pool has as many viable lineups as possible. And so sometimes rules can help with that. I think looking at this in the future, I might do something like that for GPPs. Maybe Dak Prescott and even Tony Pollard as well. Avoiding those quarterbacks with running backs, because it seems like when it comes down to it, that it ends up being not as good. And SaberSim is going to do that sometimes in your lineups because there is a little correlation there. But in the end, maybe those aren't the best lineups. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, people will like come to office hours or come and support and be like, hey, what are good rules to set? And I always say that you should only set a rule when either one, SaberSim is not doing something you specifically want it to do, or two, it is doing something you specifically do not want it to do. So when you can identify those situations, you can set the appropriate rule. But, other than that, I think that I like to say that, SaberSim isn't all like maybe you're somebody you never want to play two running backs from the same team. It's not that SaberSim is going to jam those lineups into your pool. It's that, as those lineups come in the Sims, you're basically allowing the exceptions to the rule. Like maybe you would be okay playing Montgomery and Gibbs in a lineup together, but not, Tony Pollard and is it
Rico
Dowdle?
Dowdle. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So, maybe you handle those kind of with rules. Like, okay, like I'm okay with these two guys, but I'm not okay with these two guys. And like you can kind of go like team by team here. Like I probably do not want to play Gus Edwards and like Justice Hill together, right? So you can kind of handle those situations by situation.
Right. But yeah, I mean, those are very safe rules, obviously. But I do think that this is interesting. I think something that I really don't do is set rules with quarterbacks and running backs. But I think, making sort of a thing like that, maybe not with Rashad White, but with a running back that doesn't have a lot of receiving fantasy points. I think from now on, I probably will make that automatic rule.
Yeah, I
Could
mean,
we look at
makes
what?
sense.
Sorry, could we look at one more thing? Is Cade Otton with Baker Mayfield?
Of course.
Because I was looking this a lot, and he's in about 30% of lineups, but I'm getting the sense that he was a good piece with Baker Mayfield here. So could we sort of count the ROIs here?
Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4
Four.
lineups above 60.
Okay, let's look without. I mean, there's 3 times the lineups without. So if this sort of matches that, I would say it was good to have Cade Otton. But if it, let's see. Nope, I was wrong. I see nothing there. I mean, there's definitely higher lineups without him. So, in fact, it seems
Yeah.
like it actually was not good to use him.
Seems like about like 8 lineups
Yeah.
above 60 here.
Okay. Well, maybe it's a wash.
I think it was like
So maybe
68
just
with and 203 without. So kind of a
yeah.
wash.
So there's just a lot more lineups. I mean, it's interesting. It's sort of like, you know, Baker Mayfield just single stacked with Mike Evans does seem sort of like the best play here.
Why would you think that Cade Otton would be a good piece?
Well, because it's a value tight end. I think that a lot of people think, hey, you're playing a quarterback, you have the tight end that's kind of in the range where basically if they score a touchdown, they're really good. And if they don't, they're not. So why wouldn't you want to stack him with Baker Mayfield? But it seems like, it kind of is actually just a wash. You can make that choice and you're not. I don't see anything from there. But I think a lot of people have that perspective with tight ends in that range for sure, because they're just not going to catch a lot of balls. So they have just a huge variance of their performance is just based on catching a touchdown or not.
No, I can see like the correlation aspect of that, right? And then you just now, if that works out, right, you have your value quarterback, you have your value tight end, and you can pay up in all these other positions.
Yeah.
So I definitely get the intuitive sense there.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to look at, Max?
No, I I mean, I think this was a really fun exercise. Why don't we talk about conclusions? Do you have any conclusions
Sweet.
you've come to this with,
I
Andrew?
I think that, what I noticed was like the Burrow with the heavy chase, the Prescott with the heavy lamb, like, you know, using that stud and then using either like mixing up the pieces around it. I don't think anything beyond that really stood out to me. I think there were a lot of different ways to play beyond that point there. And then obviously what we saw with running backs here, very interesting with just like the quarterback dynamics, the stack dynamics, how those things change game to game, matchup to matchup. So just really reinforces like no hard and fast rules, and different stacks are better in different situations.
Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing I'm thinking about when we're looking at this is what the question is, why is this valuable, right? Because, your process might be I make lineups, I do some adjustments to ownerships, I do some adjustment to projections, and I just take the top 150. But you're doing single entry, right? You're doing three max. A lot of us have this process where we're kind of choosing, using our own human intuition and kind of choosing from our set of lineups the best three we're synthesizing with SaberSim. And when you're doing that process, or even if you're making 150, it can make sense to try to favor certain stack types, try to favor certain lineup types. And I think the conclusion I'm coming to is one, I think for your lineup pool, making some rules about quarterback and running back can have some value and add value to your process. And I think when you're thinking, the second thing, just adding, this is the same conclusions you're coming to, but the key part of whatever stack that you're hand curating should always be the quarterback with one of the studs, right? And that doesn't mean you don't do QB plus 2. That doesn't mean you don't do QB plus 3, because I think that's valuable. But the centerpiece of your lineup should always be that part, right? And you're thinking about, what stack do I like? Maybe you like this really good value wide receiver and you want to stack him with your quarterback. Well, if you're making a lineup, that almost certainly should be a QB plus 2 with stud, right? So maybe last week you have Justin Herbert. You really like Quentin Johnston. That's someone who I liked more than SaberSim, right? I don't want to make a lineup that's Justin Herbert and Quentin Johnston single stack. I need to now curate a lineup or make more lineups that are Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston, Justin Herbert. I like Michael Gallup. I don't know why you'd like Michael Gallup, but he caught a touchdown. But I'm like, hey, everyone hates this guy. I like him. Okay, don't make a Dak Prescott, Michael Gallup single stack. Make a Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup stack. Make a Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup stack. And I think that's really valuable, especially if you're doing a more hands-on process. So I'm glad we did this. I think I learned a lot, and I think there's some good takeaways for when we're making lineups in the future.
No, I think this is great. I can't wait to see what you come up with next week. But hey, everyone, hope you guys enjoyed this show. As always, we'll be right back here next week for our week 11 review show. So until then, Max, thanks as always, man. And we will see you guys.
Okay. See ya.